Hey, it's Gothy, and I'm doing, it's going to be kind of like an introduction to cross-stitching kind of video. I've had a few people ask if I could do some basic cross-stitch how-tos and stuff, so I figure before we get to the stitching part, you kind of got to know what kind of things you need, what your options are, for things like fabric and needles, for patterns, that kind of thing. So I'm going to do that first, and then I'm going to try and wrap my head around how to record myself stitching, because that's going to be the harder part. So yes. So to begin with, where to get supplies? If you're in Australia, there aren't many options. Usually online seems to be the best. I mean, eBay has some really good cheap Aida cloths in all different colours and types of cloth, so that's really good. Otherwise, we're kind of left with Spotlight and Lincraft. Their cross-stitch selection is pretty poor, usually. Depending on where you live, will depend on how well stocked they are as well. I've met a few people who live a little bit further out than the main cities, and their Spotlights don't restock their threads very often. So, yeah, so in that case, I guess online would be your best bet. So to start with, the first thing you need are patterns. Now I have a bunch of patterns here. I have a bunch of pattern books behind this on the bookcase, and I have a whole drawer of just loose patterns that I haven't yet sorted into one of these folders. There are two ways you can get patterns. You can get free patterns. A lot of those come off blogs and Pinterest, DeviantArt. Basically, if you just Google free cross-stitching patterns, you're bound to find something. They're usually fairly small patterns. Sometimes pattern makers will give sample patterns as freebies, so that you can be like, oh well, her patterns are really easy to read, I might buy some of her bigger ones. And then you've got paid patterns. You can buy paid patterns from a whole bunch of different pattern websites, and there's Etsy and eBay as well. So there are plenty of resources for patterns. Some of them won't be the greatest quality, but most pattern sellers will give previews of either the finished cross-stitch product or like the overview picture of the pattern. So you should be able to tell what you're going to get. As for the actual patterns, I'm just trying to think which one of these would have some examples in them. Again, I have so much cross-stitching stuff here that it's kind of ridiculous. TV shows. Large patterns. I have so many patterns, it's kind of ridiculous. Zelda. Okay, so these ones are kind of, these are a basic pattern, so they're just colour blocks and you can just pick your own colours. And then you have ones like this, and they come with a colour guide which tells you what each colour and symbol are. So if you see these green ones at the top have little stars in them. I don't know how well you can see that, but most patterns will come like this now. Occasionally, I don't know if I have any in this one. Oh, there's a better example. So the plain black squares are 310. The orange ones with the spots, go to the spots, it's 783. And they'll usually tell you whether it's DMC or Anchor for threads. They're the two main floss makers. I use DMC because I've just always used DMC. Anchor's just never been one of my things, but at Spotlight they cost like 90 cents per skein of thread, and I don't actually have any on me because I store mine in a different way, so I can't show you any examples of what they look like at the moment. Occasionally you'll get patterns that are in black and white, so they still have different symbols for each colour, but instead of being colour blocked like a lot of normal patterns are now, they're just the black and white patterns. So yes, one of the two sites that I buy my cross stitch patterns from is patternsonline.com. They sell a lot more of the traditional kind of cross stitching patterns, so nature scenes and animals, traditional birth samplers, that kind of thing. But Etsy is absolutely fantastic for more modernised cross stitch patterns. Things like, you know, TV show, movie quotes, comic book characters, subversive cross stitch, just pretty much everything. Prices range for a cross stitch pattern from about $2 up until, you know, $60 depending. You can buy cross stitch kits, which include everything, and I have a whole drawer full of cross stitch kits. So this is a little Winnie the Pooh one that I got from Spotlight. It comes with the Aida cloth for stitching on. It comes with all the threads you need for the pattern, a little frame, and it has a needle in there as well. So a kit usually contains everything. There's a brand of a cross stitch pattern maker called Mirabilia. Their patterns are usually more high end. They're really expensive, and you can usually buy partial kits for them. I'm not sure if they sell full kits. Mirabilia, usually you've got to buy the Aida, the pattern, the flosses, and they usually have beads in them as well, and the beads are usually sold separately. But again, you know, just find what you like and, you know, go from there. In terms of what you can stitch on, there's a whole range of things. There are things that are less common, such as this. This is a little notebook cross stitch that I got with a cross stitching magazine, and this is perforated paper. So there are the holes there that you stitch through. They're less common because it is, unless it's a really good quality strong paper, it's really flimsy. And then you've got your Evenweave, which I don't use because I don't like using Evenweave. Evenweave comes in different counts, and what a count means is how many little holes per square inch. So 25 count means there'll be 25. 28 count means there'll be 28. Evenweave is usually stitched over 2 holes rather than 1, and I will show you an example in the next video of what I mean by that as well. I use Aida. Aida is the most common. You can get it from 8 count up into, I think it goes up to 22 count. In Australia, as I said, Spotlight and Lincraft are very limited with their range of Aida cloth. So you can get your 14 count, and sometimes you can get 18 count. Occasionally they'll have 20 or 22, but that's very rare. And they'll usually have it in the basic colours, which is white, black, cream, and there's like an off-white colour as well. So eBay comes in handy for finding other colours, like, you know, yellowy golds, and I have a sparkly one here. There's one with little hearts on it. So I do love eBay for that. The other option for cross stitching, which I'm really starting to become enamoured with, is plastic canvas. Now, plastic canvas is fairly solid compared to your Aida being made out of plastic. You can make normal Aida cloth stiff after you finish stitching. There are certain glues that do that. But plastic canvas is really good for, you know, bookmarks and that kind of thing. And as an example, I have a little Illidan cross stitch, and I can use that as a bookmark. You can trim around it, and it just stays solid, and the stitching stays on there really well. And I'm actually going to show my examples of cross stitching on this because it's a little bit easier than trying to film the Aida. So that can go back up there, and this can go back in here. Now, as for needles, I don't actually have any of the packets of the needles, but you usually use a size 24 needle for 14 count and a size 26 for 18 count. The reason is because there are more, the holes are a lot smaller in 18 count, so a larger needle can cause some problems in that regard. Just trying to think what else. Needles, thread, okay, floss. Now, as I said, I don't actually have any of the proper skeins on me, because what I do is I wind them onto these little cardboard bobbins, and I write down the number of them, and they just go in these little boxes that I can get from Spotlight for about $6. They're really handy. I have 4 of them now, so they're not very much in order at the moment because I've got a lot of different projects where I've had to buy lots of thread, but yes. So again, this is a good reason why you pick one type of floss, like one brand, and stick with it. You can go both and just have your boxes labelled as DMC or Anchor. Most of your patterns that you'll buy are in DMC, so you'll have to convert your DMC to Anchor, but there are plenty of websites that do that for nothing, and it's really easy to do. I'm trying to think what else. Yes. Now, some people like to cross stitch just holding the fabric and stitching and doing it that way. Some people use cross stitching stands and Q-snap frames and all kinds of things. I like embroidery hoops for mine. So you just pull that down, you pull that off, you put your fabric around here. This one's not going to fit obviously, but you put that around there and then flatten it, and it takes a bit of getting used to. It's a bit fiddly. It usually helps if you have this on flat on a table, put your fabric over it, and then push this down. But yeah, once it's in there, you just push that through, and you just tighten that back up. And you can get these in a range of sizes. I use this one and this one most typically. If it's smaller than this, I just freehand it. Yes. So, let's try to think what else. With Aida cloth, usually the best way to get it is not to get it cut to size, because Spotlight and Linkcraft here in Australia charge stupid amounts of money for it. For a meter of Aida cloth, it's like $40 something, whereas you can get a pre-cut size. These start from like $5, and they'll have the size of what it is there. These ones you can get in a range of different colours, but again, very limited selection here in Australia anyway. And yeah, that's probably the best way to do it, unless you have a really big project that you need. Again, there's also eBay as an option. eBay's fantastic. I got a whole heap of sparkly white Aida cloth for like $9 free shipping. And yeah, you can also buy your cross stitch kits off eBay. And yes, I think that was everything for that part of the video. Now it just comes to the actual stitching part, which is going to be the pain in the ass to film. So yes, I will see you guys next video.